Hey everybody, so we're at a Mount Simon Park. Thanks, Dan gave me the suggestion. We have a southerly wind today, so I defined a big barrier to myself that would block the wind, and Mount Simon is that barrier today. I wanted to be a little closer to the water. It's beautiful, isn't it? But the best spot to go, there's a bunch of high school students hanging out there and having a good time, so more power to them. But so I just came in a little bit. The advantage is you get a little fall color there. Feels like it's early for trees to turn, but there they go. Some of them are all colored already, but most of them are still green. Glorious place to live, Eau Claire, Wisconsin in the fall. And the whole area, right? So I got here and I'm all set up, and I opened my bag to grab my outline. I left it on the kitchen table, so that's frustrating, right? I think I kind of remember. I'll start with some parish news, and then what I forget, maybe I'll remember before it's all over. Okay, so so parish news. We had a great collection for our teachers at St. James Elementary, part of Regis Catholic Schools. We over $2,000 in cash for school supplies for teachers, as well as like actual things that they can use. So that was great. So we have our Social Concerns Committee comes up with different projects that we can support. We're pretty good at that, very good at that, our parish, when we hear where there's a need. So this is going to be for the Winter Haven House. It's the warming shelter. A lot of our parishioners work there, and staff it, I think, of Dan and Jackie and Chuck and Christine, and I'm sure there's more. I'm sorry I didn't. But it's a great thing to be able to provide hospitality. It's taking the all are welcome outside of St. James. So that's our kind of our guiding philosophy, that all are welcome, and at the church. And when our volunteers who volunteer at the winter warming shelter, the summer cooling shelter, it's open during the day when the homeless shelters are closed, right? So they're taking that philosophy of all are welcome outside. So they're welcoming people to come and make them feel at home and welcome to sit back in a nice sheltered, friendly environment. So anyway, so we're going to be collecting for that group winter coats, hand warmers, winter socks. I heard long pants of a narrow waist. That's interesting, isn't it? So 34 waist or smaller. That wouldn't do me much good, but I'm not there. So so that's some of the things we'll be collecting for in the weeks ahead. I'm going to bring those to church and we run them over. So our parish directories are going. People are taking them after Mass or coming to the office and getting one. Again, if you would like one and you didn't have your picture in it, then it'd be like $10, but it would be great to have one, I think, if you're interested in what people look like. Again, apologizing for any typos that are there. Someone said they really liked the new directory because Bob told me, because it has bigger pictures. So I guess the old directory, they had smaller, like thumbnail, your portraits in the directory were smaller. Fewer pages, but more photos per page. And this is more pages because there's more pictures per page. So that's good. The women's retreat, I've heard there's maybe about 10 registrants already, so that's really good. I got an email from Pam, the retreat director. It looks really good, the outline that she has. She wanted to run it by me, I think, as a courtesy. I mean, yeah, but she's the retreat master. But I like the beginning. The beginning will be like, why retreat? What's the value of going off and committing some time to prayer and reflection? And there's plenty of kind of input time, stuff to think about, and then there's plenty of time to be reflective by yourself, over a period of 6 hours. So we had something like that with a Jesuit priest who came up to St. James last year and led us in a staff retreat and parish council retreat, and it was good. I like that method. You can kind of engage the scripture passage as a group, and then you kind of go off and meditate on it a little bit. So reading with our heads and then praying it with our hearts. Seems like that's going to be sort of the theme, looking at Mary Magdalene, Mary, Mother of God, the Blessed Mother. It's going to be women in the Bible and how they contributed to salvation history. So that'll be Saturday, October 14th, $40 if you can afford that. If you can't, let me know. Like to not have anyone not. I'd like to have everyone who wants to go to that. I really think that'll be a great thing. So, just trying. I don't have my list in front of me, so I can't just rattle things off. We had a big day at the office, which was a little hard for people like me. Not crazy about technology. It's fine when it's working, but so we have like an old computer server, and we're gonna get it to a cloud-based thing. And so we've had some consultants from town come, and they're gonna switch us over, and it's gonna change my email. I think I'll still keep my AOL account for old time's sake, but all the kind of parish correspondence will be Father Tom at stjameseauclair.org. I'm going to start getting used to that, so that's a little hard. And then I don't know, we just had some trouble making that work actually, but I'm sure it'll all come out. But you know, one of the technicians who's been working with us from town, I've seen him about 3-4 times. Looked kind of familiar to me, but I wasn't really sure. And then it dawned on me, he gave me his email address that included his last name, and I'm like, and still it didn't faze me for a couple. And I thought, wait a minute, are you so and so from? Are you St. Joe's School, Menominee? So I've known him since he was like first grader, and here he is, big tall guy working for a tech company in town. So that was fun. And this whole time he recognized me, but I think he thought I recognized him. So anyway, I was a little embarrassing, but I'm glad I finally recognized him because he's a good guy, and I wanted to tell him that. I'm just playing with the little rocks here and stuff, and look what I found. Is that what they call is that like a 22 shell? So I don't know, someone came out there with a gun and tried to shoot squirrels or something, I don't know. Archaeology on the midweek chat. It's good, well-rounded show. I'm trying to think of other pair stuff before I move on. Let's see. I mentioned we're going to hopefully do a summer service project with high school students that Kelly would lead. Last full week in June, I think. Be a cost to that, but it'd be a great thing, I think. I mentioned how something like that really changed my life when I was in college. Okay, I'm sorry, this is, well, Parish News. Nick's doing real well. Our new music director and liturgy person. He's got a wealth of knowledge and just a great personality. So it's always a change when there's a new leader, you know. So again, we thank Mary for her service all these years. I think we decided 7 years. Okay, well, let me move on. If I forget any other stuff, I still have room for one person on the Holy Land pilgrimage in April, April 4th to 19th. Be easiest for the group if that one person were a woman, because there's one woman that's not paired yet for a roommate. So there's that. Our trees will be coming. We're gonna go get the trees on Friday, so you might see 14 trees all stacked up next to each other in pots. Then next week, a professional come in with his machines and plant them all. Okay. I think tonight I meet with the parents, so I got to do this and zip back. Parents of our second graders, hopefully they'll come. I just know it's tough when so it's what, September 19th today? 20th? 17th? 20th, I think. And Wednesday. It's beautiful. It's 84 degrees out. And so we are asking all the parents of the second graders to come to church at 6 o'clock on this perfect night, 6:30, and listen to me talk about sin and reconciliation for an hour. So it could be a tough sell. We'll have to try to do fun things for them. But it's a good deal. I mean, important. How we sin, how we experience forgiveness, how we live as members of the kingdom of God. You know? So anyway, okay, so today was the feast of Andrew Kim Taegon, Paul, I forget his last name, and all the Korean martyrs. So hundreds of them died in the 19th century in Korea. We had our school mass, and we're talking about that, and so I just thought I'd say a few things about martyrs. I remember I had a professor in the seminary who was a choir teacher, actually. His name was Father Dick Wojcik, and he always said he could make anybody sing. Anybody thought they couldn't sing, that was false, and he could make anyone sing. So the big test was Father Bob, now Father Bob, but my friend Bob, and I'm not sure he got Bob to have much of an ear, but that was his job. But he preached once on a feast of a martyr, and just by coincidence I've read on. So we wear red in church today because of this feast, and we wear red whenever there's death involved, like the Passion of Jesus, Palm Sunday, Good Friday, and whenever a saint who was a martyr died for their faith. And we wear red on one other day, Pentecost, right? Whenever it's associated with the Holy Spirit, like fire is red, and a martyr, a death, like blood is red. We wear that in church. So, but Dick Wojcik, he said, I remember his homily. He said they never, they suffered a lot, and sometimes we fear that suffering. Wonder if we should ever be in that position, how we would do, offering our life rather than deny our faith, our belief in God. And he said, one thing you should know is that their faith was so great that none of them died complaining. None of them died complaining. Or probably none, you might even have said none, I think that's what he said, but maybe like none of them died wishing that they were somewhere else. It was an offering to God, So, in the early years, that's when the whole communion of saints started, when people actually gave their life instead of sacrificing meat to the idols or to the emperor. They refused to do it because they thought that was idolatry. It was idolatry, worshiping anyone other than the God of Jesus Christ. So some said, well, you got to worship, or you're going to these idols, eat the meat, sacrifice the idols, or we're going to kill you. And some chose to be killed. The feast today I think it was just illegal. They didn't want any part of Christianity, and Andrew Kim tried to get the church going. He would try to get, I don't know if it was sort of I don't want to say too much because getting people into Korea who are Christians and spreading the word there. It's just definitely they didn't want to have in their country, and he died because of it. So I asked the kids, I said, is there anything, hopefully you're never in a position where you have to die for your faith, but the thing about martyrs is people would see them and they'd say, wow, they would give their life rather than just eat some meat, sacrifice to idols, or just say, I believe in something that I don't. Their faith is really important to them. This God, it's Jesus Christ, he must really matter. He must really be important if they're willing to give their life for him. And that's how the church grew. So what's the phrase? The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. That their example of faith inspires us and says, wow, if it's that important to them, I need it to be that important to me. It could really make a difference in my life. So I just asked him, I said, well, what could you do, that people would look at you and they'd say, wow, God must really be important to her. God must really be, Jesus must really be important to him, And so the main one was, people see us praying. Maybe you're out, maybe you make the sign of the cross and you're having a Butterburger, something like that. Just in your kindness and in conversations. But it's an interesting thing, to ponder. It's not just us living out our lives, but being aware of how people look at us and how that can help them or hurt them, I suppose, right? If it hurts them, we call that scandal. We give scandal to people. It hurts their faith. Don't want to do that. Then the more modern day martyrs. So there was always a big question with someone like Oscar Romero, a martyr. And some people resisted calling him a martyr because he was definitely killed. He was shot and killed while he was saying Mass in San Salvador, El Salvador. And but it's not like someone came up to him with a gun and said, deny Jesus, or I'll kill you, and he wouldn't do it, and so they killed him. That's like the classic martyrdom, And he was simply confronting great injustice in society. And the military government there was ordering murders, people that would be working with the poor and teaching them stuff, and the government said, here come some hikers, that they were, they had just all these trumped up things, like always making them resist the government or communists or something like that. But, he was simply defending the rights of the poor and trying to empower them. And, they told him to stop. And he would publicly on the radio say, brothers and sisters in the military, if someone orders you to kill somebody, don't do it here, your own people, just because they think something different than you. So he's encouraging that kind of disobedience for the sake of decency and morality. And he urged the government to stop the repression. And he knew if he kept doing that, he was going to be killed. And when they told him to stop, he could have saved his own skin and stopped. But he prayed. He knew what Jesus wanted. He knew the example of Jesus on the cross, the example of the martyrs. And so he kept doing what was right. He kept speaking out against the violence. And then he was the victim of violence. March 24th, 1980, he was killed. So you could say the same thing. He's not a Catholic, so we don't think of him as a martyr in the technical sense, but Martin Luther King, same deal, right? I didn't read that much of that book last week, so I don't have any anecdotes about him today, but other than to say, he knew if he kept speaking out against violence and injustice, that he was going to be killed, right? So the night before he died, he gave that speech, I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I might not get there with you, but I've seen it. I've been to the mountaintop. And he said, longevity, life's a good thing. Longevity has its place, but I don't know that I have much longer to live. It's not the ultimate value, living a long life. The ultimate value is being true to yourself and loving others and speaking out when there's something wrong and trying to change things that are wrong, make them right. And so that's what he did, and then he was shot and killed. So that's definitely in the pattern of a martyr. Anyway, Pope Francis was very much attuned to the struggle of Oscar Romero and said, yeah, he's a martyr for sure. And so on the way to sainthood, then you don't have to have all these miracles before you're, you have to have a miracle attributed to you before you're canonized a saint. If you're a martyr, that gets abbreviated. You don't have to have that. So they figure giving your life is enough. So anyway, the martyrs make you stop and think a little bit, don't they? Just how important is my faith to me? Where could I be more courageous? Or could I have the courage of the martyrs? Stand for what's right, stick up for people that are not being treated well. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention was Sunday, there's going to be a show, I believe I don't mean the Packers Saints game, at 1 o'clock on Mother Teresa. It's called Mother Teresa, No Greater Love. And what can I say about that? I saw the trailer. It looks very good. Looks very professionally done. It's produced by the Knights of Columbus, Worldwide Supreme Council, I think they call it. And it seems like there's a lot of interviews, people that knew her, so a lot of stories you'll hear about her. And also footage of her, giving some talks and seeing her in her ministry. It'll be interesting to hear the stories. I asked Christine if she knew any Mother Teresa stories, and she didn't. Nothing came to her mind, but she said, I just like this idea of we don't all have to do great things, but we all have to do small things with great faith, so really keeping our communion with Christ through our small acts of service. Not to discourage you from trying to do great things if that's in your hopper, but boy, I found a bullet before. Now I find a piece of sharp glass, so I'll put that away somewhere. I don't know. Shoot, I don't want to skin my knee on that. I heard there was a priest who gave us a talk once. I forget where it was, and he said he met Mother Teresa once. He was in India, and he heard that she was speaking at church somewhere in India, or was it on her North American tour? I think it was when she was in New York or something. And anyway, he was trying to get in the back door because he didn't have a ticket or pay, and he did. He found a way in, and then he ran into her. She was, I don't know if she was going in or going out, but he ran into her. I think maybe even alone. And he said, "Oh, Mother Teresa," and he had his Roman collar on, a priest, and he said, "Mother Teresa," oh, and he kind of, bent down to meet her. He says, "No, Father." He said, "I would like your blessing." So she just saw a priest and kind of in the back, the superstar of the world, and right away. So pretty humble, right? I would like your blessing today. I need your blessing. The main story that I remember from her was that someone was inspired by her work, and wanted to work with her, the poorest of the poor, in Calcutta. And she'd often say, "You don't have to come to Calcutta to do it. Just serve whoever is most needy in your own community." But she would take volunteers from more wealthy countries or backgrounds. And so it was with this guy, and he worked alongside the Sisters of Charity, Missionaries of Charity, Mother Teresa's group that she founded. And they're working with the dying. That was one of their charisms, one of their things that they did, because they saw how people were just left out in the street to die without anyone around them, and it just broke her heart. And she said, "We're going to take these people and care for them. We're going to wash their wounds. We're going to help them die with dignity, and with all the bad smells and all that goes with it, And so this guy was doing that for a day or two, and he just couldn't take it. He didn't know it'd be so unpleasant. And so he saw her and he said, "Mother Teresa, I'm so sorry. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, but I think I can finish out the week, but I couldn't do it for more than I couldn't do this job for $1 million," he said. And she said to him, I couldn't either, but I do it for Jesus, and that's why I can do it. Wouldn't do it for $1 million, but I do it for Jesus. Isn't that a good story? Yeah. So, and then she made news, gosh, was it 20 years ago already now? It's called Be My Light. It's a book that came out from like her former spiritual director or confessor. And it's I think it's mostly her letters, but it's very, very true to what happened in her life. It wasn't just a fly-by-night biography. It was like her words, her struggles. And, in it, she basically said she was on fire in love for Jesus, and just whatever he wanted her to do, she was going to do. And she felt called to start this religious order and work with the poorest of the poor in Calcutta. And then after that got going, that feeling, that emotional sense of being close to God, close to Jesus, basically dried up. And she didn't feel it anymore. This is still as a pretty young person. She died, she must have been about 80-something when she died. And I don't know, some people were sort of scandalized by it, but I don't know why. I mean, as soon as I heard it, I admired it. I'm like, wow, you're able to do all that you did, like for Jesus, even though you weren't getting a sense of Jesus being happy with you or filling your heart with love. And apparently not. Apparently she just remembered that she said, "Anything you ask of me, I'll never deny you." And it didn't come with a lot of good feelings later, for most of her life, but she just persevered. And I think, wow, that's faith. That's faith. Most of us can kind of keep on the track of serving God if we feel we get a little, satisfaction out of it. Not to say she didn't get satisfaction, but some good feeling out of it. And apparently she just really didn't. So anyway, I thought more of her, not less of her, after hearing that. So that was good. I guess that's mainly what. So that's going to be Sunday at 1:00. So you could either record it if you're an NFL person. You could record a game and watch that, or you could record that maybe. And I have this ability to record because and so I might be able to have it in my phone. And then I could maybe show it to Parish some night. So that'd be good. Okay. maybe that's it for now. I don't want to keep rambling. I'll just show you this. It's kind of toward the end. Was it last week I mentioned, or maybe I wrote about in the bulletin, but Our Lady Untier of Knots. Perhaps I've shown you this before on the chat. But you see, that's that great image of Mary stepping on the serpent. You know, the evil one being, you know, with her trust and her faith, being victorious over the devil's temptation and being always obedient to God. And she just got these notes in her hand, right? Knots. So untire of knots, undoer of knots. And to be able to pray with that. It's one of the Pope's favorite. I put 80% of the Pope's prayer in the bulletin this weekend, so you might want to check that out. The prayer to Our Lady Undoer of Knots. Whoops. They have the big ropes tied from these trees down there, and they swing and they land in the water. It would have been fun to have that in the background too. So anyway, maybe this would be a good prayer for you. Well, I mentioned at the end of Mass Sunday. That's why I thought to bring it out. Hear that? I should have been quiet so you could have heard. It's a good prayer just to kind of be with your troubles and your stressors, and think of the tender love of Mary up there and with her. You know, it's your life she's dealing with there, and just kind of working on your heart, trying to free it up a little, not be so worried. You know, help us be more free to love. So, okay. So why don't we leave it at that for now? I'll just kind of let you look at that beautiful red tree and the water out there. Some high school kids having a good time. You are all we have. You give us what we need. Our lives are in your hands, O Lord. Our lives are in your hands. God bless you.